Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. We'll be talking about two subjects today. Let me just give you a brief introduction to both of them. The first one has to do with the kangaroo court, committee, the committee that Nancy Pelosi is assembling in the House to investigate the January 6th insurrection. That's going to be the first topic today, having to do with the personnel on that committee. The second item has to do with immigration. It is an expansion, I guess, of what I talked about the other day about the idea, what I thought was a brilliant, ingenious idea for handling the unlawful aliens coming over the Texas-Mexico border that the Texans have come up with. Today I want to supplement that with another brilliant idea that has been broached in an article. I think it's a terrific idea to deal with lawful immigration, to promote the entrance into the country of. Those are the two subjects for today, so let's get into them right now. Starting with the first one, here is the headline. McCarthy, this would be Kevin McCarthy, the minority leader in the House, soon to be, I hope, a majority leader in the House, but for now, minority leader in the House. McCarthy pulls picks for select January 6th committee after Pelosi rejects two, Banks and Jordan. According to a report. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy on Wednesday reportedly pulled all 5 of his picks to be on the chamber's select committee and I think, again, it's a star chamber, but anyways, to be on the chamber's select committee to investigate the January 6th U.S. Capitol attack after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi rejected 2 of them. GOP Representatives Jim Banks and Jim Jordan. Quote, Monday evening, the minority leader recommended 5 members to serve on the select committee, unquote, Pelosi said early Wednesday afternoon. Quote, I have the day I'm recording this, by the way, you're seeing it the day after. Quote, I have spoken with him this morning about the objections raised about Representatives Jim Banks and Jim Jordan and the impact their appointments may have on the integrity of the investigation. And that's not a typo, that's Democrats talking about integrity. Take that for what you will. I also informed him that I was prepared to appoint Representatives Rodney Davis, Kelly Armstrong, and Troy Niels, and requested that he recommend 2 other members, unquote. So she approved 3 of the 5 members whom McCarthy appointed to be the Republicans on the committee. She rejected 2 of them. And here is McCarthy's response. In a formal statement released on Wednesday afternoon, McCarthy said the Speaker's decision, quote, represents an egregious abuse of power and will irreparably damage this institution. Denying the voices of members who have served in the military and law enforcement, as well as leaders of standing committee, has made it undeniable, as if we didn't already, at least the conservatives already know that it's undeniable, what I'm about to say here, made it undeniable that this panel has lost all legitimacy and credibility and shows the Speaker is more interested in playing politics than seeking the truth. Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all five Republican nominees, Republicans will not be party to their sham process. That would be the Democrats' sham process, and will instead pursue our own, in other words, Republicans, our own investigation of the facts, unquote. So kudos to you, Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, because what the Democrats are doing is outrageous. What they don't want is to have it exposed that this is a sham. That's what Jim Jordan would be especially good at. That's why they don't want him especially on the committee. Could be the same for Jim Banks. I don't know as much about Jim Banks, but having seen numerous videos of Jim Jordan questioning Democrats who have appeared before any committee he has been on, then I can see why Nancy Pelosi would be afraid to have him on the committee. So I would further add, what are they afraid of besides being afraid of Jim Jordan and Jim Banks? Now on to the second story. This is the brilliant idea that somebody came up with for dealing with the lawful migrants, aka refugees who want to come into the country. Let me just give you the headline, and I'm just going to read from the article, and I may have some comments. To free Cuba, make Guantanamo the new Ellis Island. Brilliant idea. I don't know why I didn't think of that. The people of Cuba are demonstrating extraordinary bravery by rising up for freedom and democracy against their brutal communist dictatorship. President Biden is reacting with a disgraceful display of foreign policy clumsiness. The epitome of this was a July 13th statement by the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, who arrived in America himself from Cuba in 1960 as a refugee. Mr. Mayorkas paid lip service to the idea that the Biden-Harris administration and the Department of Homeland Security, quote, stand in solidarity with the Cuban people and their call for freedom from the repression and economic suffering that the Cubans' authoritarian regime is causing, unquote. And I will just jump in here in case you did notice that phrase there, Cubans' authoritarian regime. I think what you really mean, but are afraid to say because of your socialist base, the base of the Democratic Party, I think you meant, or it should be, Cubans' communist regime, that the Cubans' communist regime is causing, unquote. And back to the article. The secretary's words that followed, however, undercut that.
The time is never right to attempt migration by sea. To those who risk their lives doing so, this risk is not worth taking. Again, I repeat, do not risk your life attempting to enter the United States illegally. You will not come to the United States.
What sort of, quote, solidarity, unquote, does it show to refuse admission to Cubans fleeing a repressive regime? In other words, lawful refugees. These are exactly the people who should be allowed into the country. But we have the Biden administration saying that they won't be allowed, even if, well, they're saying don't take the risk, but if they do take the risk and they do make it to our shores, they won't be allowed into the country. Meanwhile, those other unlawful aliens, if you come in over the Texas border, the Arizona border, the welcome mat is out for you. Why? Well, the article asks the question. I'll give you the obvious answer. Obvious question. Could the Biden-Harris administration be afraid that Cuban immigrants will eventually become Republican voters? And the obvious answer, bingo. That's exactly what they're afraid of. There are no fiercer opponents of socialism and communism, which of course the base, as I said, the base of the Democratic Party supports. Never mind what's actually happening in Cuba and people risking their lives to get out of Cuba to come here. Back to the article, and this should be obvious too. There are no fiercer opponents of socialism and communism than those who have suffered under those ideologies and know firsthand the misery they bring. And I would editorialize and say there are no fiercer supporters of communism and socialism than those, especially in the Democratic Party, those who have never suffered under those ideologies and known firsthand the misery that socialism and communism bring. If they were, well, how many people are fleeing the United States, American citizens, capitalists fleeing the United States to go live in Cuba under a socialist system. If I'm wrong, please let me know, but they are very small in number compared to the number of people fleeing Cuba to come here. In other words, voting with their feet, which is, by the way, the only way in which Cubans can vote, with their feet. Leave the country. If they stay in the country, they can't vote. There's no way to vote in Cuba except to vote with your feet and leave Cuba. And to that list, I would add, now that I think of it, Secretary Mayorkas. He's a refugee from Cuba from the 1960s. He arrived in America from Cuba. Does not seem to be in a hurry to go back to Cuba. Does seem to be in a hurry to keep fellow Cubans from coming to America. Isn't that interesting? But back to the article. If safety is genuinely the practical problem, which again I don't believe is genuinely the practical problem, so I am 100% confident that the administration will not embrace this idea. But if safety is genuinely the practical problem, though, there is a ready solution available. America has a 45 square mile naval station in Cuba at Guantanamo Bay. The drowning risk for incoming Cuban refugees could be entirely eliminated by inviting the Cubans seeking freedom and democracy to make their way by land to Guantanamo. At the Navy base, their applications could be processed, they could be vaccinated against COVID-19, and they could eventually be transported safely to America by airplane or in seaworthy vessels. And I will just jump back for a moment to COVID-19. Yeah, they could be vaccinated, unlike all these unlawful aliens, unvaccinated, coming into the country and being set loose all over the country, still without ever having been vaccinated. And I would also mention that the fentanyl problem wouldn't be solved, but you wouldn't have that problem of cartels. You wouldn't have cartels at all, but you would not have the problem of cartels, Mexican cartels, bringing fentanyl in through Guantanamo Bay from a naval base. I am pretty confident. I'm 100% confident of that too. Back to the article. There's no better demonstration to the world that freedom and democracy beat the so-called socialist paradise of Cuba than hundreds of thousands of people voluntarily picking up and leaving. The regime's apologists, such as Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders, claim Cuba has great education and health care. If communist authoritarianism is so great, why are people so eager to leave voluntarily for America? And I will just add, at the risk of their own lives, by sea. The president has an opportunity to transform Guantanamo from a synonym for a terrorist prison into a modern-day Ellis Island, which is precisely why, again, I am 100% sure they won't do it unless somehow they are pressured, maybe by a Republican House and a Republican Senate. I hope. But I'll just end with this other little idea of my own, which is, why not use Guantanamo Bay for all of the aliens, lawful and unlawful? So we capture these unlawful aliens coming over the border. Right now we put them in tents by the border and then ship them all over the country. Why not ship them to Guantanamo Bay? That is U.S. territory. So they would be in an American territory, but they would be prevented from entering the United States unless they want to swim and unless the Navy is asleep at the wheel and let them, or asleep at the rudder, I probably should say, since we're talking about the Navy, and let these people jump into the sea and swim to the United States. So I think Guantanamo Bay is the perfect place for all migrants, legal and illegal, lawful, and unlawful. And by the way, that was the purpose of Ellis Island itself, where incidentally my father had to stop before coming to this country. I'm a first-generation American. My father came to Ellis Island. I am pretty confident that my grandparents on my mother's side, they came from Russia, I think, or the Ukraine, I'm not sure exactly which, but they came by boat. In those days it was by boat and our ship, and I am sure that they had to stop at Ellis Island too. Why weren't those migrants at that time, those immigrants at that time, just allowed to disembark in the United States? I mean, right on the shore, right into New York City. It was precisely so that they could be vetted before being allowed. They would be kept on an island before being allowed into the United States. And many of them weren't. If for no other reason, they were all examined by doctors, and if they were not healthy, they were sent back. They were just immediately deported. So when Kamala Harris visited El Paso, Texas, the furthest she could go north and be on the Mexico-Texas border without being in the south where the problem is. She was met, I don't remember her name, but by a Democratic politician, a representative, I believe, and that representative said that the United States should be the new Ellis Island, that all these unlawful aliens should just be let in through an open border. But what she didn't know was that the United States was never an Ellis Island. Ellis Island was Ellis Island, and it was an island specifically to prevent unlawful migration into the United States. And that's it for today. The only thing I can say is I will not prevent any of you from giving me a thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with anybody you think would also like it. Got any comments? Comment section below the video, or you can put questions, suggestions for future topics. You could subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. You could visit my other channels, my hot dog recipe channel, my original music channel. And finally, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate the time that you spend with me, because every minute you spend with me is a minute that I get to spend with you. So it's a mutual honor. I hope we can continue this conversation in the future, because I would love to see all of you again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.